Our next speaker will be Ofir Arkin, who is here. Ofir is a vice president and the chief architect at McAfee. As you know, it's today part of Intel security. McAfee was acquired by Intel. He's responsible for driving and coordinating the overall architectural vision across McAfee products. Prior to his role, to the current role, Ofir served as the CTO for the security management business and was responsible for driving vision and product strategy for McAfee's security management business unit. Ofir was actually one of the founders of Insightix, acquired by McAfee. So we were acquired by McAfee, acquired by Intel, and hopefully acquired later by someone else, or not. And he has... Insightix was an innovator of real-time security intelligence and control solutions. He has also authored numerous research papers, patents, patent applications, advisories, and influential articles covering adaptive security, information warfare, network visibility, access control, VoIP security, remote OS fingering, etc. Ofir will be speaking about architecting for adaptive security. Please.
Thank you. It's pretty late in the day. You guys are tired? Cool. So usually in this type of conferences, a lot of people talk about point products, the issue of the day, the problem of the day. I try to select a different topic and talk about a holistic solution approach rather than a product. You know, being in a startup company for nearly 8 years, what you always think is that what you develop and problems that you're trying to solve are the most important problems that the world, the universe, and the mankind, are trying to resolve, only to find that that's not really the issue or the big issue at the whole. And only when you go and you start work for a bigger company and when you get access to some larger customers, you understand that customers in most cases are dealing with yesterday's issues in some cases. Customers in numbers of 100,000 endpoints, 50,000 endpoints, 200,000 endpoints, numbers that usually, as a startup from Israel, you don't get access to because these are not the type of customers that usually would go and elect a startup company from Israel. So the way that we usually think about what we are doing and the way that we are architecting the solutions sometimes significantly suffer from that mentality and the access to customers. As well as, as Israelis, we usually think that, again, what we think is the issue. But we're not really looking at the overall problem of an industry and trying to solve it from a solution perspective. So one of those things that we looked at was kind of an interesting problem, When I was in my past Chief Information Security Officer, the easiest way for me to go and persuade my CIO to buy a product was to show him that the product is in the upper right corner of the Magic Quadrant for Gartner, and I would get money for that easy and go buy a product. The problem that we created by buying best-of-breed products is that those products don't speak to each other. Those products don't communicate with each other. So with each product we bought, we added another dashboard, another screen. We added another silo of information that cannot be shared. So we see the firewall say, hey, I'm awesome. I just found out the new attack. I blocked it. I logged it. Good for me. Move on. But that engine that the firewall has and that knowledge that the firewall gathered might be useful for the endpoint when the endpoint would hit the same type of an attack, hit the same file, hit the same, you fill out the next, thing that would hit that endpoint. So what we see is that organizations that went and bought the right solutions at the time are ending up in a situation where instead of getting better at their return on investment in their operations, in automation, in all of that, they're getting the opposite. They have complete lack of visibility. They cannot connect the dots between the different solutions, and it's harder and harder on them to continue and get to the point where they can leverage the products compared to the pace of change that the attacker community has. So if you read the latest Verizon report, you saw an interesting graph that described the pace of change, or how fast an attacker can compromise, an organization, and how slower the organization itself is acting to it. And on top of that, usually organizations don't have infinite, funds, so they are lacking some of the manpower, expertise, and processes to deal with this. So when you look at these things, the end result is very clear, in the sense that we saw a shift in how the industry looked at that before Target and after Target. The reason being is that everyone in Target that were responsible for security, from the CISO to the CIO, even the CEO, left the company because of that incident. And that incident showed us that we have an issue, and the issue is one of the biggest problems in security, and a word that a lot of security experts really hate, and it's called automation. When you say automation and you talk about security, there's a lot of people that get really a bad vibe when you try and explain to them that with the mounts and mounts of information that we have to process, and the mounts and mounts of information that is generated by different solutions or different products that operates in their own silos, there is no way whatsoever that we can have a successful security operations. And with that, we try to look at the world and try to describe this problem even easier, where I said earlier that one solution or one product might detect something, but as long as they don't share that information with the rest of the security estate, your ability to better defend yourselves against that specific threat, or new or old threats that may share same characteristics as this detected issue, is basically non-existent. Because the whole idea is to try and understand how what you detect may have future effect over your security posture, or may already had an effect over your security posture, by researching better, by understanding what this smoke signal tells us. So a good example is, let's assume you have a firewall, and the firewall is aware of evasion attacks. How many of you know what an evasion attack is? Awesome, so no need to talk about that. Assuming the firewall blocks an evasion attack, and part of the evasion attack we have a file. So, according to our logic, yeah, the firewall did a great job, blocked the evasion attack, but what is interesting here? There are two parameters that are interesting, and usually they are left alone and not touched. First is the payload, the file that was blocked, and the second is the context at which we can use in order to understand how we can take this indicator and transform it into an indicator of attack. So for example, if we know who is the target of that attack and the role in the organization, and if we find similarities in the attack towards additional folks in the same department that were a target at the same time frame or across a certain time frame, we can sanitize that and use that in order to declare this as an indicator of attack, share this information with the rest of the security estate, and make sure that either this file or any derivatives that produces the IOC for this file are not capable of doing anything in the organization. Today, what usually is done, the attack might or might not block depending on the firewall that is being used, and that's it. There's no continuation beyond that point. So if I can take that information and share with the rest of my estate, if I can take that information and say web gateway, email gateway, endpoints, my application sandboxing, be more smart because I now have more knowledge about this attack because I took the file, detonated it in an application sandboxing, created an IOC, understood what are the malicious parts of that IOC, shared that within my infrastructure, looked for that with the information I have collected with my SIEM, understood whether or not I have been susceptible to this attack before and what were the results, and block future attacks. We will be able to, using that block, to adapt to that threat and understand whether it had any effect whatsoever over our infrastructure. And today this circle does not exist in the solutions out there because either companies are looking this in isolation or that linkage between the different components are missing. Any questions? All good? So when we looked at the problem, we tried to look at this as a holistic approach to solving this issue. And the innovation that we applied here was to look at the different parts, either coming from us or from the industry, and try and remove ourselves from the game of APIs. So I assume that some of you are doing solutions and connect between one product to another and have to connect to different APIs every time the API changes or the product is upgraded. You have the issue of trying to understand whether that integration still works, and when you want just to share the information across a wide variety of products, you want to prevent the need to chase the API change, and assuming you have n products, you might end up with having n power n-1 integrations between those products. So the easiest way for you to share the information would be towards using a single API that would allow you to consume literally anything that you want. This sounds like, in Hebrew we say la la land, right? Doesn't exist. But when you look at solutions in the past, you understand that these problems have been solved in the past by connecting between various applications that have no idea that they need to talk to each other by using messaging. So by using something that was used to connect between different applications, not completely related to security, what we have done, we have allowed ourselves to connect between the different solutions rather coming from us or from any third party, and using a single integration that doesn't care whether you upgrade your product or not, you're able to consume and produce information that you are seeing and react to what the rest of the infrastructure is contributing to you. So now when the firewall is able to see something, or the application sandboxing detects something, or your endpoints, everything is adaptive to that change, to that detection. And your whole infrastructure is being immunized as soon as that piece of information is being shared between the different solutions that are connected to that messaging fabric. And what we also did, we tried to find the line between where automation makes sense and where a manual operation needs to occur. Because some of the things that we're now able to do is we're able to do far better detection. Why? Because for any block that we have, and for any suspicions that we have the ability to send that to one or multiple application sandboxing, look at the detonation, and literally work with the IOC that we're producing to search back, for example, on the information we have previously collected in the SIM to try and understand whether one of the machines in our organization or more communicated with a malicious URL or executed something that had something in common with the malware that we have just found, etc., etc. So our ability to communicate between the different solutions, between the different products, and having one solution that can actually be adaptive and have more value compared to what was sold to the customer is actually delivered to the market. I'm not talking about, of course, the names of the products and how they're called and exactly what was done, but the idea here is, again, to think about what will be most beneficial for the customer. The customer went and bought with, their money, which is hard to get always, good security solutions, but at the end of the day ended up in a situation where it was hard to manage, it was hard to try and make sense out of this zoo that was created due to the fact that the customer thought that they're doing the right thing, investing in best of breed. But the real item here and the real future is to link between those different products so you'll get a holistic approach to fight cyber threats, for example, or use any engine that you have here that is capable of detecting malware, which is different on the endpoint, in the gateway, in the application sandboxing, in the threat feeds that are being received and coming from other sources, and make sure that this whole intelligence is actually used together to better fight cyber threats. So with that, any questions? Going once, twice, third? Yes.
But today, if you look at SIM, to some extent SIM does some part of this, right?
Which one, sorry?
SIM, if you look at SIM as a solution, does it not do some part of this work? Talking to multiple devices, correlating alerts, and then generating...
SIM solutions? Yeah, SIM solutions today are literally, I call them librarians. You want to find something of the past? Awesome. It's already been done. Already, in most cases, you're doomed. Now, they're good, but they're not that good. And one of the things that we see is the shift of security to real-time state rather than what had been done in the past. So yes, we still need the SIM and we still need the information because we need to understand, for example, how an attack started. So, for example, we added capabilities, I can talk about our products. We added capabilities to mark all the files that went in and out our web gateways and email gateways. Why? Because we want to build a visual trace route that shows us, okay, here went through this gateway, was not detected, what hit it, did we handed the file to someone to look at detonation or not, and what's the path was until it hit something that generated another hit. What we've done here, we connected the SIM to this real-time fabric as well. And we changed some of the products, including some of our partners, to share critical events with the SIM in real time. Because the big problem of the SIM is not the processing at the end of the day or the correlation. It's the inability to operate in real time, receiving the data when it happens, so it can use those mechanisms in order to react to what is being done. So we connected the SIM to this real-time fabric, and now we are able to literally detect things and have workflows that we couldn't do before in real time compared to the other SIMs that is out there. So this mental shift needs to occur with the way that the SIM operates as well. Not saying that it doesn't need to get the logs from the traditional things that you have here in the traditional manner, but for those things that can be now done in real time, you should do them in real time. Aims to throw me out of the... Yes? So thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Many thanks.